Alright, so let's get into the demonstration now. So as a reminder, what we're doing is we're configuring Duo to protect Microsoft 365 logins using single sign-on and Microsoft's staged rollout feature. So we can see we've got access to a Microsoft Azure tenant here. This is the main page. And the first thing you want to do if you have a greenfield deployment is federate your domain with Azure AD using the Azure Active Directory Connect. So a few important pieces of information just to be aware of is in terms of primary domain, just ensure that your primary domain is set to a non-Microsoft .com one. It should be, but just check. And also the user that you currently have access to the tenant with is global administrator as well. You can see I have a Azure AD Premium P2 license here as well. Your license may differ, but just bear that in mind. Now, as I said, with step 1 and step 2, we federate the domain and we also add the custom domain as well. So as I said, it's worth doing it the other way around. So add the custom domain first. So you can see in terms of my configuration here, I've already added my domain under custom domain names here, and you can see that the status is verified, and we can see that it's federated as well. We can also see that the onmicrosoft.com domain is the primary domain as well. So we're not going to run through these steps in this demonstration, because there's a few things that you do need to do in order to verify that the domain you're adding is actually your domain. So pretty straightforward. You would just essentially add a custom domain, input your custom domain there, and run through the steps until the status changes to verified. And then, as I say, once that's done, you can see there that the domain is then federated, at least from adding the custom domain. We do need to then look at the Azure Active Directory Connect. So if we just click on Azure Active Directory Connect, we can see that we have, in terms of provisioning with Active Directory, we've got the Azure Active Directory Cloud Sync, and it says this feature allows you to manage sync configurations from the cloud in addition to syncing Active Directory users and groups from disconnected foresters. So what we're going to do is actually we're going to run through the Cloud Sync, and we'll run through the Connect Sync as well as an example. So what we'll do is we'll start with the Cloud Sync. So if we just click on New Configuration, and we can see that the domain we'd like to sync is actually there now, but that's only because of the configuration on the domain controller, which we'll take a look at in a while. If your domain's not there, we'll have to run through the configuration steps on the domain controller as well, and we'll go through that, because what I've done for this video demonstration is actually remove that just to kind of take you through those steps. But nevertheless, we'll click Create now. So we can see here that we just got a notification saying unable to fetch custom attributes at this time, and then you can edit the attribute mappings if you choose to do so. And then you can also see that our Cloud Sync configuration is in place there as well. So once that's done, what you can see is you can see your domain, you can see that all users in this case are in the scope, so we won't edit that. And then if we wanted to change and map attributes, we could actually click on here to take a look at those attributes as well. And one important thing, as I mentioned in the presentation, is we need to make sure that password hash synchronization is enabled. So we can see we have the option here to enable or disable, and we're just going to leave that enabled there. And then what we can do is on step 3 we can verify that the synchronization is working before enabling this, just testing with an individual user from on-premise. So what I'll do in my case is I'll just test with a user. In fact, and that's going to come back as failed, and the reason it comes back as failed actually is just as I pressed provision, I actually remember we need to put the distinguished name in this field here, and I'm sure it does it tell, yeah, so we can look distinguish name of the user, so we do need to put that in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to configure the AD Connect on the domain controller. So now if I just go here and then we start to configure this, we can then get through the steps here. Alright, cool. So you can see, let's bring that to the center there. You can see now we're about to configure Azure AD Connect on this domain controller. So we'll agree to the terms, continue, and then you've got two options here. So we can use what Microsoft call express settings, or we can customize and set specific attributes and configure a more customized experience if that's what we want to do. But we can see here in the express settings, this is going to configure synchronization of identities in the current AD forest, which is a network Wizkid that we've just seen. Configure password as synchronization from on-premise to AD, from the on-premises AD to Azure AD. We saw that as well, and then it'll go through the synchronization, all the attributes, and then go through any sort of upgrades that are required. So we'll just stick with, for the most cases, express settings is the suitable option. So we'll just stick with that in this case. So we use express settings, and now we can see what it's asking us to do is to verify or to enter some global administrator credentials in Azure Active Directory. So we'll do that now. Alright, so once that's done, it'll verify those credentials. We can see there now it's asking us to log in again with those credentials, and I've got multi-factor authentication configured here. So I'll just approve that, and that's the Microsoft's multi-factor authentication there. So we'll approve that, and there we go, that's approved. Okay, now that's good. So now what we need to do is we now need to connect to the Active Directory domain. So what we need to do is specify a administrator account. So I will do that now for this. I'm going to specify a service account here, and then that's fine. So you can see there, and what we can see there is we've got the networkwizkid.com domain. We can see that that's being verified, and we can see that we also have a subdomain that's not being added as well. We've also got a little box here which essentially we can't continue without clicking it, and it's just saying users will not be able to sign into Azure Active Directory with on-premise credentials if the UPN suffix does not match a verified domain. So yeah, we understand that, and we continue without matching all UPN suffixes to verified domains. Okay, cool. And now what we're going to do, everything's in place, so we're just going to configure, finish off configuring this Azure Active Directory Connect now. So this usually takes a few minutes to go through, install all the drivers, etc. So just give it a moment and let that complete, don't click off it. Okay, so as you can see, once everything is completed, it'll tell you that the Azure Active Directory Connect configuration has succeeded, and then if there's any issues or anything, you'll also see that on here as well. So you can see that the configuration is completed, and now we can log into our Office 365 portal to verify that user accounts from the local directory have been created. So we'll take a look at that, and we also, there's a part here around Active Directory Recycle bin is not enabled for your forest, and it's recommended. In this demonstration we won't focus on that, we'll leave that as it is. And we can see that an Active Directory source anchor attribute, which is this one, is has been configured as well. So once that's done, we shall exit that and let's return back to Azure. So now that we're back on Azure, we can just refresh this now, and we can see by clicking into the Connect Cloud, we can see that that's not healthy. Now if we look at our users, let's just go back into we can see as well, sorry, that the Connect sync status, the last sync is around an hour ago. We can see that it's enabled. We can also see that password hash sync is enabled as well, and we also see our obviously domain federated as pointed out. Now if we look at our users, we have some Azure users, and we also have our network Wizkid users in here now, so we can see those are denoted with the networkwizkid.com. So we can see Kelvin, that one's there, that account is there, and if we click into that, we've got the information here, networkwizkid.com as well. Got that information in there as well. So users are in there. That's great. So we've by now we've added the custom domain. As I pointed out, this was already added for this demonstration, but the process and where you do that was demonstrated there. And we have federated our domain with the Azure AD, and now what we need to do is we need to take a look at Duo for the first steps on enabling single sign-on. So if we just head over to Duo now, and then once we're signed into our Duo admin panel, we need to head over to single sign-on, and in this case, in my demonstration, this is already being enabled, but if it's not, you will be taken through the process in order how to kind of show you how to set that up. We've added our authentication source here, which is our on-prem Active Directory, so you would need to add your identity provider here. So again, if you wanted to add a source, this is essentially what you will be looking at when you first get started here. So you can see we can add Active Directory, or we can add other SAML IDPs. So we could actually add the Azure Active Directory if we wanted as well, or other third-party IDPs as well. In this case, as I say, we're using our on-prem Active Directory, and because we're doing that, we also have the authentication proxy that's been downloaded and configured within our environment, and that's just to allow for that communication between Duo and the on-prem Active Directory as well. So in this case that's done, but if you are using or going through this for the first time and nothing's configured, then you would kind of run through this process, set up your Active Directory, and you can see we've also got the authentication proxy that I spoke about there, in order to get this configured. In our case, as I said, this is already configured and we have the authentication proxy up and running. What I would urge you to do if you are setting this up for the first time, there is documentation on how to set up single sign-on, how to configure single sign-on as well. Again, there's documentation here, there's documentation here, so I would urge you to click on the Duo documentation and run through the steps to get this set up, but this is not covered in today's demonstration here. So once that's done, again we would go back to Azure, and then what we need to do now is we need to go to groups, because this is where we're going to essentially configure or at least enable stage rollout. So what we'd do is we would essentially create a new group, and then we'd leave the group type as security, and let's call this group we'll call this staged rollout demo, and we'll give it a name of demo group. And you've got the option here to specify whether your Active Directory roles can be assigned to the group. We're just going to leave that as default and default, and then you can add in the members here that are a part of this group here. So what we'll do is we'll just add the on Microsoft users that I've got here, basically the Azure users, and we'll leave the at least one of the network Wizkid domain users out of this group as well. So let's add demo 2. In fact, demo 2. We'll add demo 1, and then we'll add all the rest of these users. Alright, so essentially what this is saying is that anybody that's going to be a member of this group, so those users that we've just selected down here, they will not be subject to Duo's single sign-on, and anyone that is not a part of that group will be subjected to Duo sign-on when accessing Microsoft 365. So once that's done, select, create that group, and then if we refresh that once that's done, we can see there right at the bottom now we have a group called Stage Rollout, and we can see where that group, the source of the group in this case is the cloud there. So that's great. So now what we need to do is, if we go back to the overview, we actually need to enable Stage Rollout. So we need to click back on Azure Active Directory Connect, and then we've got a feature down here now, Stage Rollout of Cloud Authentication. So what we're going to do now is we're going to enable Stage Rollout. So to do that, we click on that, and then we head over to password hash sync. We need to change that to on, and then we press OK there, and now we can manage groups. So what we're going to do is we're going to refresh this. Let's just remove that group there, and let's add the group, and let's just search for our group that we created, Stage Rollout Demo. Select that, and there we go. So we've input that group there, which is going to be part of the stage rollout. So this is really good, really, as I said in the previous video, if we want to trial Duo, if we're transitioning from a purely on-prem footprint to more of a hybrid approach. It allows us to kind of do that while being able to test as well. So once that's done, stage rollout is effectively now in place, but we still don't have Duo configured fully yet. So our last step before testing and verifying is to finish configuring Duo. So if we head back over to Duo now, let's just go to applications, because I think I may have one from earlier. Yes, I do. So let me remove this. Essentially what we do is we go across to applications, protect an application, and then we search Office or Microsoft 365. So we can see that Microsoft 365 comes on up. Let's click protect there. And now we need to run through the configuration steps here. You can see that download PowerShell script is grayed out at the moment. We can't download that, and the reason being is because we need to input configuration in the following steps first before we can generate a PowerShell script. So in terms of domains we are protecting here, we're going to protect the network wizkid.com domain. And it says here, if you want to federate multiple domains, you'll need to create a Microsoft 365 application for each domain. So what that's saying is that if you have multiple domains, you will have to do the step that we're going through now numerous of times, depending on how many domains you would like to join as well. WS Trust configuration, we'll leave that as it is for now as part of this demonstration. We don't really need to mess around with that. On this we actually have universal prompt configured. Again, that's not the main focus of the demonstration, so we can leave that for now. And then we essentially go down into the policies. Again, we'll just use the default global policy just as part of this demonstration. And for the name, if you do especially have multiple domains that you are joining, it's recommended to give this a suitable name. So in this case, I'll just call this Microsoft 365 demo. And then there's a few more options that you can choose to use if you decide to. We'll just go ahead and we'll press save on that. And now what you can see is we've got this PowerShell script here now that we can download. So if we just go ahead and we download that script, you can see that we get a PowerShell script. So I'll just go ahead and copy that over to the domain controller, because we will need that for that device. So I'll just paste that PowerShell script here. So that's the actual PowerShell script. Now before we actually run that PowerShell script, there is a few things that we need to do in order to allow that to successfully install. And one thing that I would recommend doing actually as you're going through this is, as it says here with step 1, open the Microsoft 365 SSO documentation. It's pretty good, and it doesn't cover stage rollout at this point, but the documentation is updated from time to time, so do bear that in mind. We're actually on this step now, so enabling Active Directory Federation to Microsoft 365 using SSO, and we're actually on step 4 here. So we can see that once we've downloaded the PowerShell script, we need to navigate to the directory and pretty much get this PowerShell file and enter the following commands, replacing this bit with the name of the actual file that's been downloaded. So we'll do that now, and that's pretty much the last step. Once we've done that and that's succeeded, that's the last step really before we can actually verify single sign-on with Microsoft 365. So let's do this final step. So I'll just copy this here just for ease of use. So if I just quickly open a notepad in there, and then a PowerShell, and we'll just run this as administrator. And what I'll do is I'll change directory to desktop, and then the file that we need is the one that we just downloaded there. So we'll run that. So what we'll do is essentially, let's just copy that there, and then we'll change this. It's not done that there, so let's just type it out: M365 demo.ps1. Okay, cool. So what we'll do now is we'll copy that, and then we'll run this. It's gonna let me. There we go. So we'll paste that in there, press enter, then it should run through and do the necessary in order to complete the configuration. So we can see that we've got a Microsoft 365 Federation script. It's asking us if we want to continue. We're going to say yes. We can see that now we need to enter the tenant's admin credentials. So we'll just do that again quickly. So it'll be Kelvin at wizkidcloud.microsoft.com. And again, we'll just authenticate there with a two-factor authentication from Microsoft. And there you go. So now we're in the next step. So it's saying that domain network Wizkid must be defederated to change the federation settings. Let's just go through that and select yes. Alright, cool. So that should be completed now. So we can see that the domain's being federated successfully. We can review the configurations, and it's asking us to return back to the documentation that we were just on to complete the rest of the configuration. So in our case, technically, we've completed all the configuration. Now we should be ready to verify our multi-factor authentication with Microsoft 365 using our on-premise or federated users, and with the stage rollout as well. So let's just go to portal.microsoft.com, and in fact I'll do that in incognito mode. portal.microsoft.com. And then I'm going to enter my federated user's name or email address rather, and with this, as soon as I press next, it should now redirect me to Duo. So all being well, it does. Yep, so you can see it's redirecting me. There we go. So now we can see we've got Duo. So now we're going through the single sign-on process. So we'll just do this now, and then we'll go ahead and enter our password. And now you can see we're getting the two-factor authentication, which I will approve now. And there you can see success. And then it'll ask us if we want to stay signed in. We'll just press no in this case. And there you go. So you can see now that we have access to Office 365 in this case now, using the user that is going through the multi-factor authentication with Duo as well. So that's pretty much it. So we've seen essentially how we can enable Duo or configure Duo for Microsoft 365 logins alongside the stage rollout to make it easier for organizations to move to the cloud or to have more of a hybrid working model with Duo multi-factor authentication. So now if we just go back to the Duo admin panel and we go to our dashboards, or in fact let's go to reports. We can see there that we've got the application, the user that's authenticated successfully. You can see that it's been approved, and we can see some additional information there as well. So we have everything up and running, and that's for the stage rollout as well. So next, let's take a look at what it looks like for users that are a part of the group that shouldn't be subject to Duo's multi-factor authentication. So if we just head back to Azure and just let's take a look at our group a minute. We can see 13 users are in there. That's fine. Let's go to members of the group and yep. So let's add another member to this group. Okay, so let's add the contractor to that group. Yeah, so let's add it to stage rollout. There we go. Let's refresh that. Let's remove that one. Alright, cool. So now it's a part of the stage rollout group. So now let's attempt to do the same again. Portal.microsoft.com, and this time that user contractor at network Wizkid.com should not go to Duo. Oh, and by the way, before we do that, let's not forget the licenses as well. So let's just assign licenses to Kelvin Charles demo user. Let's just save that there. Failed. Let me just double check. Oops, and if we get the license assigned failed, we just need to just go to my user and change or assign a location for that user. There we go. Let's edit the location first. Usage location. I'll just specify United Kingdom. Save that. And now if we go to licenses and assign license that I have, there we go. So now we can see that that's succeeded for that user, and similarly we'll do the same for contractor. Let's just do the location here quickly, and then again we've got to assign those licenses there. Save that, and that's been done. Great, good stuff. Cool. So now we will head back over to Incognito and let's sign into Office 365 login. Office.com, sign in. Contractor. Network Wizkid.com, Now you can see that the difference here is that the user hasn't been prompted now for or hasn't been redirected to Duo in this case. So you can see there now we can sign in. Let's just skip this for 14 days. Let's not stay signed in. And there you go. So now we can see that we signed into Office, and we didn't get the Duo prompt there. So this is how Stage Rollout essentially works.